I've been having this conversation quite a bit lately with various closers inside the dojo, outside the dojo, and so I just wanted to make this video because it is top of mind for me, and I have a feeling that it might just do wonders for you by hearing it. So the topic is external versus internal on sales calls. So I'll tell you a quick story about a closer on one team who consistently gets stuck up in Q&A sessions about the business, about the methodologies that the business uses, about deliverables, about questions just out the wazoo that prospects have. And if you've been in sales for any amount of time, you probably understand the fact that, if you give a prospect an inch, they will often take a mile, especially if they're A-type, especially if they have low trust, especially if they're high anxiety, high worry type people, especially if they're in the position where they don't have what they want out of their lives. And that is often the case, right? That's why we're here, and that's why we have jobs. So getting into this, I sat down with this closer, and we needed to break down what was actually causing him to get into these Q&A sessions. And it essentially came out that he believed that he needed to answer these questions in order for the prospect to feel enough trust that we knew what we were doing. All right. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong. Okay. I will say that is not necessarily the full picture. Because if, for example, a prospect asked a question about how we go about doing something, right? Let's just say, for example, just to make it really relatable, let's say that we are selling the idea of getting into high-ticket sales and becoming a high-ticket closer, right? Classic biz op sell. This person wants to leave their 9 to 5, travel the world, have more time with their family, etc. A question that might be fairly equal to the one in our real conversation would be something along the lines of, okay, if I become a closer, will I get fired if I'm not taking 8 calls a day, right? Now, this question isn't necessarily a bad question. It's not necessarily one that we need to avoid or anything like that. But it is a question that lets you in onto where the mindset of the prospect is. And that's the point of this video that I'm making here, is anything that you say as a human being is an externalization of what's going on inside of you, inside of your heart, inside of your mind. Whatever you are thinking about, you are probably communicating. Whether it be verbally, whether it be non-verbally, whether it be consciously, whether it be unconsciously, you are communicating what's going on inside of you at every level, I guarantee it, right? If you are thinking about, I wonder if I'm going to be able to actually have the time freedom that I'm wanting, or if it's still just going to be like another 9 to 5, right? That might lead to that question coming out of you. But there's a difference between the question that you ask and what's actually going on inside of your head, right? What's going on inside of your head is much more personal. What's going on inside of your head has a lot more weight. What's going on inside of your head is a big tangle of fears and thoughts that are just swirling inside, and you can't really grab a hold of it because that's just how worry, fear, anxiety, that's how it works, right? It's really hard to wrangle on your own. And so our jobs as closers is not only to listen to, of course, these externalizations, these words that people say, and take them at face value, answer the questions they have, and talk more about, what it is that their goal is. They want to make 10K a month, 15K a month. What would that allow them to do? Blah, 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 blah. But the level deeper and the more advanced version of sales that really gets into true closing, the true skill of closing, is being able to see and understand that these externalities, these externalizations, these words this person is saying, come from an internal state that's going on inside of their brain. And I don't need to ask questions about the externalizations because they are just branches of the tree, if you will. What I, as a closer, need to really ask questions about is the roots. I need to ask about what is actually going on in this person's mind that causes them to ask this question. So I'll give you an example. If we just take that exact same question, if I am to address the externalizations, which is, am I going to be able to do 5 hours here, or 6 hours here, 3 hours here, and 3 hours here, and 3 hours here, or whatever. If I answer that question, I'm like, yeah, you can make your own schedule. That handles the externalization, but it doesn't handle the internalization, and it doesn't help the prospect actually unwind and sort out all of this web of fears and anxieties and thoughts going through their head. And so therefore, I'm not really doing the prospect very much of a service. I'm only answering the questions that they know how to formulate in words from what's going on inside their head, which they may be focused on the wrong things. They may ask a question that's not even relevant to the thoughts that they have, but they think it is because they just don't know. There's so many different things going on. And so my responsibility as a closer is then to actually dive in instead of answering the question like, that's a fantastic question. Short version, yes, you can make your own schedule. But what I'm wondering is, what's the main reason that you're asking that question? Maybe it will come out that my kid gets off of school at 4 p.m. and we got to take him to school at 8 a.m. And until I really start making money with this and my wife can retire, she can't take him to school. So I have to figure out if I can set my schedule around that. Right? It's a much different answer than just yeah, you can work whenever the fuck you want to. And maybe you wouldn't even answer with, yeah, you can work whatever hours you want. Maybe you would answer with something like, well, usually offers you to work from 9 to 5, Eastern time or something like that, and take a bunch of calls in one spot. And you answering the question in your own lens is your own externalization of what's going on in your head as a result of this other person's externalization of what's going on inside of their head. So it just becomes really convoluted really quickly. And so ultimately, what you want to focus on as a true top tier closer or a true top tier salesperson is what's going on inside the person's head. All right. Let's take another example of this. Let's talk in fitness, right? Maybe an analytical question that a prospect might have is what diet do you guys recommend the most, right? What diet are you guys going to have me following? You can answer that based off of whatever you think their real question is that they're asking. You can answer just that exact question. But ultimately, again, it is your understanding of their externality. And not only may your understanding be inaccurate, but their externalization of what's going on inside of their head might also be inaccurate. So it doesn't do anybody any good. So what I'm going to ask is, fantastic question. Before I answer it, is there a reason that you ask? It sounds like maybe there's a story there. Well, yeah, I tried all these diets and I just haven't been able to stay consistent with any of them because it just takes too much time to shop and too much time to really focus on what I'm eating and blah, 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 blah. Now, they've just externalized again. And so I'm going to go not for the external, right? I could say, oh, well, how much time has it been? How, what things have you tried? And blah, 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 blah. Or I can go for the internal. That's why do you think you weren't able to find the time to make any of those diets work in the past? or, maybe diving into what's going through their head when they think about that. It's like, okay, when you think about the fact that you haven't been able to make any sort of these diets work in the past because, like, you haven't had the focus, the energy, the time, like, what comes to mind, or what's going through your head right now? So I'm going for the internal, not the external. The external, like, we can chase rabbits all the way around, and it's like the first level of discovery, right? Getting good at discovery is asking questions about, like, okay, got you. And what diets did you try? Why didn't that work? Why didn't that one work? How did you feel with that one? Did that one make you feel better or worse? Blah, 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 blah. And, like, kind of walking through what they found to work and not work. But, like, eventually you get down at the end of that discovery process to, like, okay, got it. So all of these things didn't necessarily work out, but other people do these diets fairly successfully. And they have less time than you. So, like, if there is a version of a human being out there in the world that has less time than you, has less energy than you, has more kids, has a crazier home life, has a crazier work balance, and they're able to stick to the diet that helps them achieve the body of their dreams, then why can't you? What's different between you and that person? And then you get into the internal stuff. So, like, there are some times where maybe a prospect is more guarded, maybe more reserved. I might go through a little bit of that externalization first, or I might just go straight for it, depending on my mood, right? Do you want to hit the problem head on, or do you want to, like, massage them into it? But at the end of the day, you're still going to get to that internal belief system eventually, if you are really good at what you do. And if you don't get there, then you'll notice that your conversation just tends to stay surface level. And your consequence, or your cost of an action, might sound something like, what happens if you don't actually find the diet that works for you, and, you stay overweight and you're not able to spend the time with your kids, or blah, 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 blah. Whereas the great cost of an action, or the great consequence question, would be, what happens if you never figure out how to set a goal and stick to it, and you're never able to lose the weight, and blah, 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 blah? Notice the difference. Finding a diet that works is important, but setting a goal and sticking to it is something internal to this person. External versus internal. Diet, problem with discipline and consistency. So anyway, like I said, it's been top of mind for me. I've been talking with a bunch of closers about this, so figured I would share this with you guys at the cost of all these other closers just having troubles with it. So you get to learn from other people, right? It's constant. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Let me know your thoughts, and ciao, ciao.